What is the worst case of psycho-overprotective parenting that you've ever seen? When I was doing freshman orientation years ago at college, the tour guide told a story when we got to the dorms. The head RA for a freshman dorm got a knock on her office door about 2-ish months into the first semester, right before midterms. A girl walked in and asked what was the longest amount of time guests were allowed to stay in the room. The RA told her, "Can't remember the amount of days." And the girl says that her roommate's mother had been living in the room since move-in weekend. Holy frick, new. I went to high school with a guy whose parents had a camera installed in his room that fed into a TV screen in their bedroom. When he told me, I assumed it was one of those things they used when he was a baby then disabled when he was older. Nope. According to him they still kept it on 24/7 even though he was like 17 years old. I'd never been so creeped out. My aunt won't let her kids open their own soda cans because she thinks they'll cut their fingers off. Which was fine when they were young, but they're 15 and 18 now. How are they going to open beers? A girl I know didn't get a talk from her parents until she was 18 or 19. Her mom had decided that if she didn't know what fricking was she would keep her virginity forever or something. Now Sally, this is what people do when they really love each other. Oh, Billy and I do that all the time. Girl at school wasn't allowed any sugar, no sweets, not even fruit. It was weird. I invited her to a party at mine and her parents came round before the party to check our house was safe. They asked if our gate locked to keep people out. It wasn't fair on her though. Every birthday or party she'd eat tons of junk food and feel ill, and she used to crawl around the classroom pretending she was a cat. I think they broke her. My wife's mother. Too many acts of lunacy to mention, but the one that sticks out was when we went to their house for a family barbecue. We were in our mid-20s. Mom decides to start a fight over my presence, as I wasn't family and thus should not be attending. Wife says if he's not welcome, we're leaving. Mom says, no you're not. You're grounded. Wife just gives her this tilt your head sideways look and says, we're going back to our house. Whoa, that's pretty extreme. I know someone who just moved into her college dorm a couple weeks ago. This girl has never had a house key as her mom wouldn't allow it. If she wanted in the house mom better be there. Her parents also have all of her social media passwords and her mom openly states she used to go read the chat conversations. Not as bad as others. However the girl has already been home one weekend and is set to come back in a few weeks. We're all wondering how she'll rebel once she's under the college experience. This girl's brother, who is in middle school maybe just started high school is worse. He is so coddled that he freaked out when he was left in a waiting room at a doctor's office alone while his uncle went back for his appointment. The kid could not be left alone. For the record neither kid is special needs. Sweet Jesus. Those kids are gonna have major trust issues if they don't already. Around the middle of my first semester of college, I lost my phone. I noticed it was missing around when I got back to my dorm. Thinking that I left it in one of my classrooms, I called it from a friend's phone. A classmate, who lives off campus had found it. He took it home, because he knew it was mine and was going to give it back next Monday during class. And that was that. I would get my phone on Monday so problem solved. Boy was I wrong. Because he turned off the phone after that call, my mother couldn't get a hold of me. My mom being my mom, assumed I was dead in a crack house after doing too many drugs. The lunatic took a plane and flew from Panama to DC, just so she could make sure I was okay. Halfway across the continent just so she could ask one question. Keep in mind, my best friend and 4 other high school friends were attending the same college as me, and lived in the same dorm building as me and she had all their phone numbers. Also to make matters worse, that was not the last time she took an 8-hour flight just to make sure I was okay. I'm surprised she let you off to college in the first place. My first roommate in college was extremely coddled by his mother, or at least I thought so. His home was about an hour away from campus and she came up every day to get his laundry and make his bed, clean his side of the room. They were both neat freaks, and I wasn't a slob by any means but I wasn't quite as neat as either them would have liked. What ended up happening is I would come back from class and find her making my bed, organizing my desk and picking up my dirty clothes. Didn't really appreciate that, but I didn't want to make waves, so I just kept my mouth shut. Finally it got really weird when I came back to the room after a class had gotten cancelled and they were both in the same twin bed. He was sleeping and she was stroking his hair face and singing him a lullaby. Oh my god. Wife grew up in a quiverful family. She was only allowed to wear ankle-length skirts, no movies or any time, only parental approved books, Pilgrim's Progress, the Bible, theology books, no music except for classical and hymns. In order to date her, I had to court her. That involved never being alone, her parents inviting themselves to our anniversary dinners, siblings repeating every word that we said back to her parents. I gave her a goodbye hug, and her mother yelled at her, calling her a W and a loose woman. When she finally gave up and ran away, they chased her to her car screaming, and tried to block her in the driveway with a tractor. I gave her a goodbye hug, and her mother yelled at her, calling her a W and a loose woman. Dang, that's just rough. My first boyfriend in high school practically lived at our house, because my mother refused to let me go to his. He was over every day after school, and most weekends. Finally I convinced her to let me drive myself to his house. At this point, I had met his dad twice and his dad thought he did something to offend me, scare me off because I never came to visit them. I really wanted to go hang out with him and his dad, so I drove myself to his house, with the condition that I call my mother immediately upon arrival from their phone. Google Maps said it should take 8 minutes to get there. 8 minutes and 45 seconds later, I get an enraged phone call from my mom. I was just walking in the door, and I hadn't called her yet. She made me immediately return home and grounded me from my cell phone for a month. I had an ex-boyfriend from high school whose parents were very strict about him dating, so we always had group dates. We weren't allowed to be alone. We went over to his house for a movie night and everyone all of a sudden left, but it was super late and my dad's place was across town. So I called for him to pick me up, but it was going to take 45 minutes to get there. His parents made me wait outside on the porch alone in November. In Canada, it was cold. He wasn't allowed to wait outside with me. They didn't even let me wait in the foyer with them supervising. Now that is just cruel. My mother signed me out of high school, and I was not allowed out of the house for almost 2 years. She quit her job and was convinced the Asian mafia was going to kill us. I wasn't allowed near windows, to get the mail, nothing. But my siblings came and went as they pleased. To this day, I do not understand. You were obviously the favorite. Congrats. I got one. My sister once told me about this one time when she was at a beach house with her friends. They were all over 20 years old, and they were planning to stay there for the weekend. Obviously, they were going to stay up all night watching movies. When midnight strikes, this one girl's phone starts to ring, and it was her mother, telling her to go to sleep. Worst part, she silently stood up and went to bed. She is over 20 years old. I work security at a college, so I've seen my fair share. This wasn't so much overprotective as it was babying. I once had a mother call our office. The exchange went as follows. Mother, hello. Can you please go tell my son's professor that he won't be in class today? He doesn't feel well. Me, where is your son? Mother, oh he's there, on campus, in the dorms. Me, Mom, I don't know who your son's professor is, and even if I did, it's his responsibility to get in touch with them, not mine or yours. Mother, oh I know, but he called me and asked me to call him out of class. Me, he's in college now. He's 18. He can do this on his own. He doesn't even need to call. He can email his professor. Her, laughing, you're so right. That's ridiculous. One of my favorite things about being an adult is being able to call myself out of things. I had a friend growing up whose mom refused to send out a Christmas card with her and her brother's photos on it. The mom was convinced at the end of the season, once people threw away the cards, the garbage man or anyone rifling through the trash would see her amazing beautiful children, find the address on the discarded envelope and come kidnap the kids from their home. She did many other bizarre things, but that one always stuck out to me. I freaking hate when parents do this. It's extremely overprotective and kids need be exposed to the world. Besides, I tend to return the kids when I'm done with them. Garbage man. On my friend's 13th birthday, his big brother was taking us paintballing. We said bye to his mom. She was, in full disclosure, a severe paranoid schizophrenic who liked to go off her meds. Anywho, we left the house and headed to paintball. At a random gas station a good half hour away we stopped for snacks. When the older brother goes inside, the mom pulls up to a screeching halt next to us, rolls down the window and starts yelling at us to make sure the older brother spends all the money on paintball, rocking the crazy eyes the whole time. She leaves by rolling around to the back of the gas station and idling there. When the older brother got back, we told him what was going on. He told us to buckle up. Sure enough, we pulled out of the gas station and she starts to try tailing us. I say try because next thing I know we're on the freeway doing at least 100, dodging from lane to lane till we found a quick off ramp that took us under a bridge where we hid for a few minutes to make sure we had lost her. The older brother refused to let her ruin my friend's 13th birthday. He was a good dude. My ex's mom screamed in my face, legit inches from my face, that I was stealing her son away when he bought his house. It was his decision to buy a house and he had wanted me to live with him. The location of the house, you ask? Directly across the street from where his parents live. My former roommate's parents were extremely protective of my roommate. Once I woke up to 3 calls and 4 texts from her mom asking if my roommate was in the room. I replied back yes. Later that day my roommate explained to me that there was a girl murdered in North Carolina that fit her description and her parents wanted to make sure she was alive. We go to school over 400 miles away from NC. That made more sense than others in this thread until the 400 miles away part. I don't know about the worst, since my parents were pretty good about other stuff, but anything to do with fricking was a major no-go. I remember them trying to give a talk to my oldest sister, who was 8 or 9 at the time, making me 4 or 5. We got to the part where the guy puts the thing he pees out of into a hole I was not aware existed, and I ran away screaming. That subject was never revisited. They pulled me out of middle school physical ed because it was too early, and my high school taught abstinence. I thought that all pee, not just chili pee, was illegal until college. My friend's mom. They're great people and I love them like a second family, but she was overprotective. 4th grade, his mom cut the tail off of the Nightcrawler action figure I got him for his birthday for being demonic. 5th grade, she throws away the medieval Spawn action figure I got him for being Spawn. High school, she throws away the vintage Faster Pussycat shirt I gave him. His dad's cool though, he'd watch Beavis and Butthead with us when we were 10. I once dated a girl with absolutely insane parents. Throughout middle and high school, they refused to let her go out to anything but school and choir trips. She had to argue and bargain with them for months just to be able to go to senior prom. They wouldn't let her go to junior prom. They also refused to let her get a driver's license or a car, to limit her mobility. Even to this day they refuse to let her go out. She, a 20-year-old woman, has to get permission from her super restrictive mom and dad to go out for coffee at the cafe downstairs. The worst part of all of this is that she can't move out, as they have hold of her passport and where she lives. It's more or less impossible to get anything done without it. All of you talking about the legality of withholding her passport. I don't know for sure whether it is or not. The laws where I live sometimes had really backwards policies. I have advised her to try to take action, escape many times, but for personal reasons she has decided not to. I disagree entirely with her choice, but it's a choice to make, not mine. While I love your guys' concern and willingness to help, I will not be giving out information that can be used to identify her, so please don't ask. I graduated high school a year and a few months ago. A good friend of mine was a freshman my senior year. Now she's a junior and taking college classes at my college. She's not allowed to talk to me because I graduated. She still does in person, but not as much as we used to be able to. She does realize her parents won't know. One time, when I was about 6, I was playing on a playground. Anyway, I went down this tube slide thing. It was totally covered, and this little girl walked in front of it. Well, surprise surprise, I hit her. Her mother got super mad at me and told me that I should pay more attention in the future. B. I was on a slide. B. Hate slides. When I was in college I was dating a girl and had been for some time. My dad lived in another state, and we had made plans to go visit him so she could meet him for the first time. The day we were supposed to leave, like 2 hours before we left town, she got her grades from her college. They weren't as good as her parents wanted, so they grounded her. I went to her house to try to reason with her mom. I should have bailed at that red flag, but I was in love, and her mom was so condescending. I explained how my dad and stepmom had made arrangements for her to be there, and how excited they were to meet her. She wouldn't hear it. I made the mistake of saying I understand that you're upset, but deciding this right before the trip just seems childish. I was banned from their house. We were actually together for a long time after that, but I know they're still really overprotective, and she's really dependent on them. She's 31, and the last time I talked to her, a few months back, she still lived with them. Codependency is a learned disease. My boss has a baby and a 4-year-old, and they are super overprotective. Like, the 4-year-old still sleeps in their bed with them and the baby, and they haven't left either kid alone with another person ever. Sometimes he talks about how they've never been out since the kids, like I can relate. I have a pair myself, but we still live our lives. The 4-year-old went to preschool, so the mom went with him and sat in the class every day, and even sat at his table and played with him instead of letting him interact with peers. One time they were in the office and my boss hand-fed him food because he didn't want the kid handling the food himself since the kid had recently touched the computer. Recently he was describing their garden and how the food at the back never gets picked because we can't go back there ever, because of the baby, you know? No, I have no idea. You live on a small fenced lot in the suburbs. What are you afraid of getting to your baby if you walk out to the corner of your yard? The worst part is, he's constantly telling me how tired he is, and how his kids never sleep, but it's probably because they are all sleeping in the same bed waking each other up all the time. Both of my kids were in their own room by a couple of months old and it made life so much easier. When they're in the room with you, you notice every little noise. Also, babies can be taken into gardens. I was tearing a general chemistry lab in college and a parent emailed me after the first lab report with an annotated copy of the graded assignment which I gave a B+. Little Johnny had never gotten a B in a class before and I was just being unfair since it was his first semester in college. Long story short, she threatened to go to the prof. I said go ahead, and they did. The professor was awesome. When kids be about their grades, he offers them a regrade, and then goes over the report with a fine-toothed comb. The B+ got changed to a C. The student was the one who ultimately asked for the regrade. Would he have asked for one if his parents didn't make a stink? Maybe. Maybe not. It doesn't matter. Part of being in college is learning how to take responsibility for your actions. And there's a reason professors rely on TAs for grading freshman lab assignments. Their time and attention is better spent elsewhere. Asking the professor for a personal regrade must carry downside risk, otherwise everyone would ask for one every time. Please feel free to question the grader on anything. That's part of their job too. Just make sure you have a solid case before requesting a formal regrade. I used to work in the post office of a university. We would encounter helicopter parents from time to time. I remember getting a phone call from some student's mother. She wanted to understand our procedures in detail. What happens when a student gets a package that's too big to fit in his mailbox, etc. After much discussion I asked her, why do you need to know this? Turns out she wanted to know so she could explain it to her son. I also took a phone call from another mother who listed a lot of rambling complaints about the university, most of which shouldn't have concerned me in the first place because they had nothing to do with my department. But one of her allegations was that her daughter had been physically harassed while working in the cafeteria. I figured this was serious, so I wrote down the details and reported it to my boss, who made some inquiries. It turns out the university had already heard the story from the mother, but had not taken any action because the student herself had refused to file a complaint. Only the mother had complained. So now, the mother, after having already complained, and not getting satisfaction, for good reason, had decided to repeat her complaint to the post office. I met my wife on OkCupid. We were about 21 at the time. I came into her life at a bad moment. She was failing classes, anxiety prone, etc. Eventually she got asked to take a leave of absence from her school. Against my better advice, She didn't tell her parents, went back to the school to pack up her stuff and figure out what her next move was. Well, her parents found out within that next day or so, and her dad flew some odd 1,000 miles to get her and go back home. But this was the next thing. They cut her off from the world. She couldn't go out of the house unless it was to the schools that they enrolled her in to get her back in good standing. She dropped off the face of the earth. Her mom spent time writing all of her friends, pretending to be her, stating that they could not be friends and that she was moving on with her life. Her mom did the same to me. Eventually I got a hold of her and we had to talk secret for months on end. We started dating and she graduated and we kept talking. Well, she finally moves out of her parents' house and comes to visit me some 1,000 miles away. Her parents cut her cell phone off. When she gets back to her hometown, they demand she comes over. They confiscate some items of hers that I gave her and told her to never speak to me again. That doesn't work, of course. Eventually we say frick it because they are bat crap crazy. We're talking the mother mailing me that she knew who many managers were and could call them and let them some freaking craziness and get married. When we finally tell them, which is like a month or two after it happens, the mom played the victim like we didn't even give her the chance to get to know me and to like me. And I'm just like, B, you impersonated your daughter and told Emmy that you wanted nothing to do with Emmy. Your daughter told you that we would be together and you threatened to disown her. As you could see, this completely works me up. Nonetheless, now the mother refuses to speak either of us, has manipulated the ball-less but father into not speaking to his own child, and the teenage younger sister thinks that my wife is the world's most awful person for choosing to live her life. For frick's sake. I had a couple of sisters that worked for me. They were from a pretty strict Southern Baptist family. They wore floor-length skirts, etc. Anyway, the youngest of the two was a very avid reader. She was always looking for new stuff to read, but her parents were super strict about what she could read, so she read a lot of Narnia, Lotta, other fiction with strong religious undertones. I grew up in a strict Baptist home, too. I felt like I knew what she was going through. We got to talking about books one day and I told her that she had to read To Kill a Mockingbird, as it was a classic that should be read by anyone who loved books. I brought her my copy from home and gave it to her to borrow. The very next day, she returned it and said that her parents wouldn't let her read it because it had the word kill in the title and that she wasn't allowed to read gratuitously violent books. A friend of mine had very overprotective and religious parents. He didn't have a door on his bedroom or bathroom. When you went over there you had to take your shoes and socks off. I understand shoes, but how are socks any more dirty than bare feet? He never got dropped anywhere either, always had mom or dad there. Bathroom. That is truly weird, man. What is sad is they think they are helping him, but really they are crippling him. They are crippling him socially and making him incompetent. He will have a hard time adjusting, not saying he can't, just harder. My friend has to be home before 8 PM, maybe 9 PM every night. Can't go out on Sundays because of church. Can't date anyone. Can't move out because his parents would take his car, his job, family business, his school funding, and completely cut him off. He is 21 years old. He once told me that his parents sat him down and had a serious discussion about why his credit score was 666. Yep. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.